How do I tell my kids that they were conceived with fertility treatments using donor sperm and that their dad is not their biological father?
I'm going to sit with your 21-year-old one day, and they're going to say if they lied about this, then they probably lied about everything else.
Well, my question is, how do I tell my kids that they were conceived with fertility treatments using donor sperm and that their dad is not their biological father?
How old are they?
11 and 13.
Who's having the biggest trouble with this conversation? You or are you married?
Yes.
And so do they know their dad, the guy who's raised them? Do they know him for their whole life?
Yes.
Okay.
He's on the birth certificate. He's their father since birth.
Excellent. Okay. So who's having the biggest problem with it?
I don't think either one of us are having a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we just don't know how to approach this subject. You know, it's not a question of if we should tell them. We want to.
Yeah.
We want them to hear it from us, not find out by chance someday doing a DNA test.
Yes. And those are becoming ubiquitous. They, your instincts are right. They 100% will find out.
Right.
Yes.
And back when we were going through this, it wasn't really, we thought about that future, but it was more that we just deeply wanted the kids and we were going to make our family this way.
Yeah.
But now we know for sure they are going to find out someday, and we want them to hear it from us.
Which is so noble, and I'm glad that's your disposition. Do you have y'all have biological kids by any chance?
My husband has 2 from a former marriage,
Okay.
and I have 1 as well from a previous relationship.
Okay. This is going to sound strange, but I think that might help facilitate the conversation. Your kids have a picture in their head of different kinds of families.
Yes.
And different ways people take on the name dad or take on the name mom. And different people coming in and out of their life with different levels of influence, right?
Yes.
So how old are they again? Say that again.
11 and 13.
This is super unhelpful, so I'm saying this to the people listening. I probably would have had that conversation began it earlier. But we're here, and so I think as soon as y'all are ready, I think the distinction line, the sentiment I want y'all to land on is anybody can father a child. Their dad stepped up and decided he chose them. And that's the double down, triple down, quadruple down I always want to go back to. I chose y'all. And if they ask questions, you can talk about how, you can get with a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, you can get pretty graphic, right? Have y'all talked about sex? Do they know about that? It's not weird or anything, is it?
No, the older one, he's beginning puberty, so we've had that talk.
Okay. I would recommend strongly that not be a talk, that just be discourse in your house, and your 11-year-old is probably 100 miles down the road from where y'all think he is. From what he knows. Is it he or she? I just assume that. He probably has an idea that from the bus or from his older brother on how stuff works. And so here's how I would have the conversation. I would say I have to talk to you about some big news, and that we have a special family, and y'all know that because dad had kids, their step brothers and sisters with this other person. I had a kid with this other person, and when we got together, we decided to make a family in another way. Mm-hmm. And here's how this works. And you can talk about, y'all know how sex works. The penis goes into the vagina, and the sperm that meets the egg, and we make a kid. Some awesome medical researchers have figured out how to do that outside. And so, why didn't their dad? Why didn't he participate? He already got a vasectomy.
He had a vasectomy, and then we had planned to reverse it, which we tried, but it was unsuccessful.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I would have that conversation with an 11 and 13-year-old.
Okay.
I don't think that's too much. It might be too much if y'all have if sex is in your house is something that y'all never, ever, ever talk about. That would be too much at one time, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is a discourse of we're an open family, we're funny, we laugh, we joke, we poke fun, this and that, and then here we go, here's this. That's a different. Y'all have a different context already. So if you don't have that, you're gonna have to build some context.
We definitely have a good relationship as far as we can speak freely about things. We are conservative Christian, so I think there's some of that some of the sex talk isn't open every day.
Sure.
They're pretty sheltered in what they watch, and not that I'm not, I know that they've seen things or heard things, but.
And what I would tell you is the idea that you're a conservative Christian amplifies the need that they get open and direct, and they understand their bodies are awesome and that sex is amazing. Like, does that make sense?
Yes.
Because if you're not a conservative Christian, if you don't subscribe to that value system, you're getting from the outside world how amazing sex is, and oh my gosh, check this out, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I've done for the last 20 years is deal in the aftermath of kids who get to college, kids who graduate college, kids who try to start their lives, and nobody ever had any conversation with them, and they find themselves in nightmare scenarios. And so I would say if your value system is anchored in conservative Christianness, your house needs to be the most sex-positive place on planet Earth, where they hear about it, they talk about it, they know mom and dad are doing it, they know mom and dad love it, and also it's bounded by a context, right? There's a time and a place. Mm-hmm. And so that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other call, a whole other conversation.
Right.
But I would sit down and have that conversation, and they are going to take their cues from you. If you are awkward and you're scared and nervous, they will understand that what they're being told, beneath the words of what they're being told, is somehow something they should be ashamed, nervous, frustrated, scared about. If y'all fully sit down and own this as two adults who made an adult decision because you wanted so badly them to in your life, mm-hmm. they will have their world shifted, right? They're not going to understand biology versus whatever. So I have another dad. No. I will always be your dad. Always. Mm-hmm. But yes, an anonymous person contributed the sperm part. So biology-wise, you have an anonymous father, and that's a choice we made. But this is your dad, has been your dad, will always be your dad. And he chose y'all. You got to keep doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on that line. He chose you.
Okay. Are you familiar with any data on kids or families like mine? Like from a child development perspective and all that? Like,
no, I don't have any data in front of me. The only data I would call it anecdata, which is just my lived experience, is sitting mm-hmm. with 19 and 20-year-olds who just find out.
Right.
And what it does,
I just don't want to mess them up.
Well, what's going to mess them up is feeling like there's something wrong or secretive about their existence. Okay. And you and your husband are going to have to make peace with the fact that for medical purposes, they're probably going to want to know. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're going to have to fill out questionnaires. Do you have any cancer in your background, in your family history? Or do you have any liver issues in your family history? And they're going to want to know.
Right.
And they need to know that stuff. Yeah, and if they can't already, they will be able to contact their original father at some point. I mean, their bio father. Just technology surpassed us all. And so you can read those stories that pop up where somebody's got 1,000 bio kids across the world, right? That's the world you've inhabited. And so my fear for you is you're going to try to manage the info in a way that you withhold things. Please don't do that, because here's what happens. I'm going to sit with your 21-year-old one day, and they're going to say, if they lied about this, then they've probably lied about everything else. And so I'd rather them deal with uncomfortable information from an anchored in, honest, direct, loving, caring parent, a regulated adult, not somebody who did something and they're nervous about it or scared about it or whatever. But yeah, here's what we did. We went and got a sperm donor because we wanted you guys, and Dad had a surgery. They're 11 and 13, right? We're going to talk their language so they feel safe. And it's like, but we tried and didn't work. So there's this amazing new technology that allows somebody who has dedicated their life to helping couples have kids that aren't able to have kids. And we don't even know who the name is. But it's not something y'all are going to shy and be like, and we're so sorry. We're not going to do any of that kind of stuff. Because I don't want them walking away from this with their entire world upside down and them thinking somehow their existence is bathed in shame. Y'all made a choice. It is what it is, what it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
And if you, I recognize my family's different. I'm just thinking of a conversation we had last night about the planets. And you can imagine I was making jokes about Uranus and just like, but again, my family's different. I understand that. It's probably too far the other way. But if there's parts of the conversation that your husband says, hey, I need to talk to the boys for a second and we're going to invite you back in. And he talks about that in a way, in their language. Do you get what I'm saying? And I do believe in calling body parts the right words, and I do believe in never, ever, 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 ever shaming a kid for body parts and making sure everybody knows that we all got the parts and it's all good. But there's also a part about, in the nerd world, we call it rapport building. I'll often speak a language, right? So if I'm meeting with somebody and they're swearing a lot, I'm going to meet them where they're at. I'm not going to violate my own values, of course, but I want to meet them where they're at. And this is a way to talk to an 11 and 13-year-old that lets them know, oh, our dad gets us. Right? And it may be in your house, mom doesn't need to be a part of that part of the conversation. But y'all do need to be united. We decided we wanted you two in our lives so bad. And there's a guy out there who dedicated his life to helping couples find or have amazing kids like you two. And it's just going to be presented as fact. And if you ever have any question, anytime, always, and then it's really important to put on a calendar about 2 weeks later, one of y'all take one kid out and the other take the other kid out, and y'all go out and just talk about, hey, like, that was a big conversation we had the other day. What do you think? What have you been thinking about? You think you ever one day want to meet that person? We don't know who he is, but you ever want to meet him? You let me know. I would love to help that. Does it feel weird? And you might get one kid that is devastated. You might get one kid that's like, my whole life's upside down. And you might get another kid that's like, yeah, okay. In their world, there's all kinds of families. There's like y'all's family, which is a blended family. There's families of divorce. There's gay and lesbian families. There's just families that look all kind of different worlds in their world, in their schools and their friends. And this is just a unique family. And once again, I keep saying this over and over, we chose you. And I think that's where you go. To every parent out there, right beneath my disdain for people who don't have wills is people who are not honest with their children about big life stuff. Like this situation, we had a sperm donor, or we had this situation, or you had an infant brother who died 2 days after he was born, and we've been sad for a long time about it, and here was their name. You have to have those conversations with your kids because they will come out, and it unspools every bit of your relationship because every kid who's now a young adult asks the question, if they lied about that, what else are they lying about? Now, they don't need to know details about your sexual escapades of your past. They don't need to know details about blah, blah, blah. But if it concerns them, they got to know. They got to know. And it's got to be age appropriate, right? So thank you so much for that call, Amy. Kind of like you mentioned at the beginning, not everybody's going to have this particular situation. In fact, few people will, although more and more and more are dealing with this. But every parent has conversations that they need to have with their kids. Every parent does. And I'm just telling you, I've sat down with too many 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, 25-year-olds whose whole lives are in ash because mom and dad kept big, big, big secrets. Whew. Thank you for being the parents that want to tell the truth.